In the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the human race had long been an isolated species, confined to their small corner of space. Earth, the cradle of humanity, had been forgotten by most advanced civilizations. The interstellar community, made up of far more ancient and powerful species, had never bothered to reach out. Humans were viewed as primitive, a curiosity at best, a species unworthy of notice. For centuries, they had lived in relative peace, ignorant of the galactic tides that shaped the destiny of other races.
But this was all about to change.
It started with a spark. A young woman named Elena Voss was born into a quiet, unassuming life on Earth, working as an astrophysicist. She had always believed that humanity's isolation was a temporary phase, that somewhere out there, a grand destiny awaited them. When she discovered a hidden signal, a cryptic message emanating from deep space, it was the kind of revelation that could have shattered her career. The message was unmistakably artificial, far too structured to be the product of nature. The signal had been sent by an ancient race, long thought extinct, whose knowledge had been preserved in the galaxy's most ancient archives. The message contained star maps, coordinates to worlds of incredible value, and, most importantly, a series of warnings. The message hinted at an upcoming galactic event, an invasion that would threaten the galaxy's entire existence. Elena knew that the best minds of Earth would dismiss her findings as an aberration, a fluke of space. So, she kept it to herself and began to investigate further. Little did she know, she was the first human to touch the pulse of a galaxy on the brink of war. In the meantime, humanity continued to live in its bubble. The governments, spread thin by resource scarcity and internal conflicts, paid little attention to the stars. But all that would change in one fateful moment. Elena managed to decode the message, tracing it to an ancient relic hidden beneath the surface of the moon. The relic, an artifact from a race called the Orcs, would change everything. The Orcs had once been a galactic power, but they had been wiped out by a monstrous and relentless enemy, the Harken Dominion. The Orcs had left behind a key, a set of coordinates that would lead to the heart of a galactic war and, perhaps, the power to change the course of history. But humanity was woefully unprepared. Elena's discovery was met with disbelief by her colleagues at first, but soon after, it attracted the attention of Earth's leaders. Unbeknownst to the population, the military began to funnel resources into secret research programs aimed at understanding the Orcs technology. Elena, now under tight security, was brought in as the leading expert. The race to uncover the truth behind the Orcs' mysterious fall began, and with it a new vision for humanity's future. On the fringes of known space, far from Earth, a band of rogue mercenaries had intercepted a strange signal of their own. The Harken Dominion, an expansionist empire known for its violent conquest of lesser species, had detected something important on the fringe of their territory. The Dominion, already on a path of expansion, feared that humanity, ignorant and fractured, might hold the key to their downfall. And so, they set their sights on Earth, not yet aware that the inhabitants of that pale blue would soon become their greatest threat. As the tensions between the Dominion and humanity grew, so too did the resolve of Earth's leaders. They realized they could no longer remain passive in this universe. The time for isolation was over. Elena Voss, once an unassuming scientist, now stood at the crossroads of destiny. With her newfound knowledge, she began to rally the world, forging alliances and setting in motion the creation of the first human interstellar fleet. The echoes of an ancient race resonated within her mind as she planned the next move. Her world was changing, and it was no longer a matter of simply surviving, it was a matter of thriving. The people of Earth, who had spent generations looking upward with wonder, now had a chance to shape the future of the galaxy. They would no longer be ignored. But it wasn't going to be easy. The galaxy was filled with ancient empires, powerful species, and ruthless warriors. Humanity would have to fight for their place among the stars. And yet, within the heart of every human burned a fierce, untamed spirit, a drive to overcome any obstacle. They might have started as an isolated species, but in that moment, the seeds of rebellion were planted. The galaxy would soon learn what humans were truly capable of. The next chapter would determine if the spark ignited by Elena Voss could become a fire that would reshape the galaxy, or if humanity would remain forever on the sidelines of galactic history. Humanity's first steps toward galactic prominence were anything but easy. Earth's newfound resolve to reach the stars had stirred up emotions both hopeful and fearful. The world's governments, now united under a single banner, began to pool their resources for the construction of a fleet that would rival even the greatest of galactic powers. However, there was no training manual for such an endeavor. Humanity was raw, untested, and yet burning with an undeniable will to survive. Elena Voss, once a quiet scientist, now held the mantle of humanity's most important leader. Her days were filled with meetings, briefings, and coordination with a newly formed United Earth Military Command. But she knew that creating a fleet capable of taking on the galaxy's most formidable enemies would require more than just building ships. Humanity would need to quickly master advanced technologies, overcome political divisions, and unite under a singular vision. The first step was forging alliances with the few species that still viewed humanity with curiosity, if not outright disdain. The Virile, a semi-organic race of scholars, were the first to offer help. They had long observed humanity from afar, fascinated by their capacity for innovation. They offered their knowledge of propulsion systems, energy weapons, and the fundamentals of interstellar diplomacy. Despite their technological prowess, however, the Virile were reluctant to take sides in any galactic conflict, and their aid came with a heavy price. Humans would have to prove themselves worthy of the Virile's trust. The second key ally came from an unexpected quarter. The Draxians, a nomadic and warlike species that had once battled the Harkon Dominion in the distant past. Though known for their ferocity, the Draxians respected strength and resilience. After a tense but successful diplomatic mission led by Elena, the Draxians agreed to provide advanced weapon systems and combat training to humanity's growing fleet. In return, the Draxians demanded a seat at the table when it came time to wage war. The price was steep, but Elena understood that the human race had no choice but to leverage every advantage it could get. Yet, as human forces began to learn from their allies, internal conflict began to rise. Not every human was ready to face the realities of war. Earth had been at peace for generations, and many were unwilling to embrace the brutality of galactic politics. Protests erupted in major cities as citizens questioned their government's decisions. The military draft was met with fierce resistance, as families feared the loss of their children to an unknown war. But the reality of the galactic threat was undeniable, and Elena knew that unity would be the key to humanity's survival. She needed to convince them that their future depended on their ability to stand together. Meanwhile, in the darkness of space, the Harkon Dominion was growing increasingly aware of humanity's movements. Their spies had intercepted communication between Earth and the Virile, and their intelligence officers had pieced together the emerging alliance. It was no longer a matter of whether humanity would be a threat. It was a matter of how soon they would rise to challenge the Dominion. The Harkon Dominion, led by the ruthless Emperor Xenar, had long viewed themselves as the galaxy's rulers, their empire stretching across hundreds of worlds. Their military might was legendary, and they believed that nothing could stand in their way. However, they underestimated the resolve of a species that had lived in isolation for so long. For all their strength, the Dominion lacked something humans had in abundance: the will to fight for their survival at any cost. Emperor Xenar, upon learning of humanity's fledgling fleet, made a decision that would forever alter the course of the war. He ordered a surprise attack, sending a fleet of Dominion warships to Earth's solar system with the goal of crippling humanity before they had a chance to rise. The attack was swift, overwhelming, and utterly brutal. Thousands of civilians died in the initial strikes, and Earth's military was caught off guard. The Harkon fleet bombarded Earth's moon and the nascent human colonies, sending the world into chaos. But humanity had underestimated the power of their own resolve. The attack, while devastating, only strengthened their determination to survive. Elena Voss, shaken by the loss of life, knew that this was their moment. The people of Earth would no longer cower. they would not be broken. In the wake of the Dominion's assault, humanity united like never before. The streets were filled with people, not in protest, but in solidarity. Across the globe, nations set aside their differences, and the first unified military response was launched. The nascent fleet, though outclassed by the might of the Harkon Dominion, fought with an unyielding determination. The battle for Earth was only the beginning. In the fiery heart of war, humanity would forge the strength it needed to rise beyond their isolation and take their place among the stars. The universe had underestimated them once before, and now they would learn what humanity was capable of. The true test had only just begun. The Dominion's attack on Earth had shattered any illusion of peace the human race had clung to. The surprise invasion left humanity in a state of shock and mourning, but it also ignited an unrelenting will to fight. Earth's cities lay in ruins, and its military was in disarray. Yet, beneath the wreckage, a fire had been kindled, one that could not be extinguished. Alayna Voss, now leading the charge, knew that humanity's survival hinged on their ability to rise from the ashes. The human fleet, still under construction but hastily thrown into action, fought against overwhelming odds. The Harkon Dominion, with its superior technology and vast fleet, had underestimated the ferocity of human determination. While Earth's defenses crumbled, the first wave of ships, mostly makeshift, untested, and poorly equipped, fought valiantly, buying time for the next phase of humanity's plan. Alayna's strategy was simple but bold: to bring the war to the Dominion's doorstep and make them regret underestimating Earth's potential. She knew that victory would not come quickly or easily. The Dominion's military might was unmatched, and the galaxy's other powers were hesitant to intervene. But that hesitation played into humanity's hands. Earth's leaders quickly realized they could not wait for outside help. They would have to rely on their own cunning and adaptability, traits that had carried humanity through centuries of hardship. The human fleet's first major battle took place in Earth's outer orbit, as the Harkon Dominion launched another wave of attacks to destroy what remained of humanity's infrastructure. The battle was chaotic, with human ships outnumbered and outgunned. But the human crews, trained by the fierce Draxians and guided by Alayna's strategic genius, fought with a level of coordination and ingenuity the Dominion had not anticipated. They used their limited resources in ways the Dominion found difficult to counter: decoy tactics, guerrilla warfare in space, and surprise strikes against vulnerable Dominion ships. Though the humans lost many ships in the battle, the Dominion fleet suffered more significant damage than anticipated. The key to humanity's survival had always been their resourcefulness, and it was this very trait that began to turn the tide. The Dominion, overconfident in their might, had failed to realize how quickly humanity could learn from each encounter and adapt. After the first decisive victory, Alayna turned her focus to the stars themselves. With the help of the Virile, humanity began to build faster, more effective ships, craft capable of outmaneuvering the Dominion's heavier vessels. Earth's shipyards, once limited to crude, experimental designs, now hummed with activity. The human fleet was growing, and as it did, so too did their understanding of warfare. No longer just students of war, humanity was becoming masters of it. The battle for Earth was far from over, but with each passing day, the balance of power began to shift. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Harkon Dominion's enemies began to take notice of humanity's resilience. The Virile, cautious but intrigued, sent emissaries to Earth to observe the war and offer more technological expertise. Other species, some with long-standing grudges against the Dominion, quietly reached out to Alayna in hopes of forging alliances. Yet, not all of these species were trustworthy, and Alayna had to carefully navigate the complexities of interstellar diplomacy. It was during these tense negotiations that Alayna learned the true scope of the Harkon threat. Emperor Xenar, enraged by humanity's defiance, had called upon his allies, the Karoth, a race of monstrous, bioengineered warriors, and the Zykoth, a brutal species of conquerors who thrived on fear and terror. Together, the Harkon Dominion had formed an alliance of destruction, one that could crush entire star systems without mercy. Elena knew that to defeat the Dominion, humanity would have to face not just one enemy, but a coalition of galactic forces bent on maintaining their stranglehold on the stars. The war would not be won by military might alone. It would require a shift in the very way humans approached conflict. Elena understood that while the Dominion had vast resources, they were arrogant. They saw themselves as the rulers of the galaxy, and that arrogance could be their undoing. Humanity, though small in number, had something the Dominion lacked: the will to fight for freedom, for the chance to prove their place in the galaxy. As the human fleet began to rebuild and recover from the battle, a new strategy took shape. Elena, working alongside the Draxians and the Virile, devised a plan to strike at the heart of the Dominion's power. It would be a high-risk mission, one that could either cripple the Dominion or lead to the destruction of the human fleet. But for humanity to have any hope of victory, it was a risk they had to take. The stage was set for the next phase of the war. The humans were no longer just defending their home, they were taking the fight to the enemy. The first strike was planned for a remote Dominion supply station, a critical outpost that fueled the Harkin war machine. If humanity could disable the station, it would delay the Dominion's ability to wage war and give Earth's forces the breathing room they needed to regroup. But the Dominion's response would be swift, and humanity's resolve would be tested like never before. The crucible of war had begun, and humanity would face its greatest challenge yet. Would their ingenuity and courage be enough to turn the tide, or would they be crushed beneath the boot of the Dominion's empire? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. Humanity's daring assault on the Dominion supply station had been a success, but it came at a great cost. The human fleet had dealt a serious blow to the Dominion's war efforts, crippling their ability to resupply and reinforce their troops. However, the attack was not without consequences. The Dominion had retaliated with ruthless precision, sending their fleets to punish Earth's defenders. As the war raged on, Elena Voss found herself grappling with the harsh reality of interstellar warfare. No longer could she simply rely on strategies of surprise and innovation. The Dominion's forces were vast, their tactics refined over centuries of conquest. They knew how to respond to human ingenuity, and every victory came with a sobering reminder that the fight for survival was far from over. In the aftermath of the successful raid, Earth's fleet had to regroup and refit. The loss of several key ships and personnel left the humans vulnerable, but their resolve remained unbroken. Elena, though scarred by the violence and destruction, found solace in the growing unity of her people. Earth's civilians, once divided by their own struggles, now rallied behind the war effort. Their collective will, strengthened by the realization that their very existence was at stake, propelled the human war machine forward. But with the rise of the human fleet, so too did the whispers of the Dominion. Emperor Xenar, ever calculating, realized that humanity's strength could not be ignored. His patience had worn thin, and he ordered the creation of a new weapon, a device capable of erasing entire planets from existence. The Harkin Dominion was preparing to deploy the Oblivion Cannon, a weapon of unimaginable power that could turn the tide of the war in a single stroke. The galaxy's other races, though watching closely, were divided. Some saw the rise of humanity as a threat to their own power. Others feared the consequences of a Dominion victory, knowing that the Harkin Empire would not stop at Earth. A delicate balance of alliances formed, but it remained fragile. Elena knew that humanity would need more than just military might to win. They would need the support of the galaxy's other races, but that would require delicate diplomacy and the strength to hold their ground. On Earth, a new generation of soldiers, engineers, and leaders rose to the challenge. Human ingenuity continued to surprise their allies and enemies alike. The first human-designed dreadnoughts were launched, massive ships capable of withstanding direct hits from Dominion weapons and returning fire with devastating power. These warships, a testament to humanity's rapid technological advancement, were the backbone of Earth's defense. But the war was not just fought in the stars. It was fought on the ground as well. The Dominion had begun deploying shock troops, elite soldiers trained to crush any resistance on occupied worlds. Their first target was one of the Viral colonies, located on the edge of their territory. The Viral, though technologically advanced, were not a warlike species, and they were ill-prepared to face the full might of the Dominion's shock troops. When the Dominion's invasion force landed on Viral's homeworld, the Viral government sent out a desperate call for help. Elena, recognizing the strategic importance of the Viral as both an ally and a symbol of unity in the war, dispatched the newly formed human fleet to defend the planet. The Viral cityscape was a marvel of organic architecture, with shimmering towers woven from the very trees of the planet. But the beauty of the world quickly became a target as Dominion warships obliterated the outer defenses and deployed their ground forces. The human fleet arrived just in time, launching a series of attacks on the Dominion ships in orbit. The battle was fierce, and Earth's fleet struggled against the sheer numbers of the Dominion's forces. Yet again, humanity's innovative tactics turned the tide. Human ships, small and nimble, darted through the enemy lines, targeting weak points on the Dominion vessels that the larger fleets had overlooked. The Dominion's confidence faltered, and the Viral ground forces, bolstered by human-trained troops, managed to drive the Dominion invaders off the planet. But the victory came at a steep cost. The Viral had suffered significant losses, and the Dominion had sent a message: they would not be easily defeated. In the aftermath of the battle, Elena knew that humanity's role in the galaxy had changed forever. They were no longer the underdogs fighting for survival. They were now the vanguard of an interstellar resistance. With the Dominion's Oblivion cannon still under construction, Earth's fleet began to assemble for a daring counteroffensive. The ultimate goal was to destroy the weapon before it could be deployed. But the closer they got to their objective, the more they realized that the stakes were higher than they had ever imagined. The Dominion had made their position clear. They would stop at nothing to maintain their control over the galaxy. As Elena prepared for the most dangerous mission humanity had ever undertaken, she reflected on how far they had come. From isolated, insignificant beings on a small planet to the architects of a galactic revolution, humanity's rise had been nothing short of miraculous. But now, facing the might of the Dominion's weapon, they would have to prove their worth once again. The galaxy would never be the same. The shadow of the Dominion loomed over all, and it was up to humanity to strike back and secure their place among the stars. Would they succeed in dismantling the Dominion's ultimate weapon, or would their newfound strength be crushed under the weight of the Harkonnen Empire's wrath? The next battle would determine the fate of the galaxy. Humanity's chance at victory lay in the heart of the Dominion's empire, their most secure world, where the Oblivion cannon was being built. This weapon, capable of erasing entire planets, was the ultimate tool of destruction, and if it were allowed to fire, it would bring an end to Earth and every other world in its path. Elena Voss, though battle-worn and weary from the ongoing war, knew that if humanity was to have any hope of survival, they had to destroy the weapon before it could ever fire. The fate of the galaxy rested on their success. The plan was ambitious, dangerous, and almost certain to fail. Earth's fleet had grown more powerful, but it was still outmatched by the vast Dominion armada. The Dominion's military was a finely tuned machine, ruthless in its efficiency and relentless in its pursuit of total domination. Infiltrating their homeworld would be near impossible, especially with the Oblivion cannon nearing completion. But Elena and her commanders had a secret weapon: the Draxians. In the early days of the war, the Draxian mercenaries had taught humanity the art of warfare, the brutal, relentless tactics that could crack even the strongest defenses. It was time for them to put those lessons to use. Under Elena's leadership, a coalition of human and Draxian forces prepared for a bold assault. The plan involved infiltrating the Dominion homeworld through a series of covert missions, using specially modified stealth ships and guerrilla tactics to avoid detection. Meanwhile, a large portion of Earth's fleet would launch a diversionary attack on the Dominion's outer defenses, drawing their forces away from the real target, the heart of the Oblivion Cannon project. The attack would begin in stages. First, a group of elite human operatives would infiltrate Dominion-controlled space stations and relay vital intelligence back to Earth's fleet. Second, The Draxians would lead a series of devastating raids against Dominion supply lines, disrupting their ability to reinforce their front lines. And finally, the human fleet would strike in full force, storming the Dominion capital and targeting the Oblivion Cannon itself. The mission was set in motion, and Earth's fleet moved out, preparing for the largest, most dangerous engagement of the war. Elena stood on the bridge of the flagship, her eyes steely with determination. This was not just a fight for Earth anymore. This was a fight for the future of the galaxy, for the preservation of freedom against an empire that sought to dominate everything in its path. As the fleet approached the Dominion's core systems, the tension in the air was palpable. The Dominion's defenses were formidable, with fleets of warships and advanced weapons systems guarding every major colony and station. Earth's ships, despite their recent advances, still lacked the firepower to go toe-to-toe with the Dominion's might. But they had one advantage: the element of surprise. Elena's plan was executed with precision. The first wave of Draxian ships, acting as a diversion, smashed into Dominion fortifications, drawing their fleets toward the outer reaches of the system. As the Dominion ships raced to intercept the Draxian forces, the human infiltration teams slipped past their lines undetected. For weeks, these small, covert teams gathered intelligence and sabotaged critical Dominion infrastructure from within. They cut communication lines, disabled defenses, and disrupted the construction of the Oblivion Cannon. The Dominion was forced to shift resources, trying to locate and eliminate the threat. But humanity's teams had become ghosts in the system, striking quickly and vanishing before the Dominion could retaliate. With each successful mission, humanity learned more about the Oblivion Cannon, its power, its location, and its vulnerabilities. However, as the operation grew more successful, so did the Dominion's awareness of the threat. The Harken fleet began to close in on the human ships, and Elena's forces were forced to accelerate their timeline. There was no longer time for subtlety. The final assault would have to be launched immediately. The humans and Draxians converged on the Dominion capital, their forces now fully committed. The largest battle humanity had ever fought loomed ahead, with both sides ready to sacrifice everything for victory or defeat. As Earth's fleet engaged the Dominion's warships in a desperate attempt to clear the way, Elena's final objective came into focus: the Oblivion Cannon, now fully operational and ready to fire. The Dominion's forces, though battered and strained, held their ground. The final stage of humanity's plan would require a coordinated strike, a full-on assault by both ground and space forces. Elena led the charge, as the human fleet launched a series of precise attacks on the Oblivion Cannon's energy core, attempting to disable the weapon before it could be unleashed. On the surface, human ground troops, bolstered by the Draxian warriors, fought tooth and nail against the Dominion's elite shock troops. The battle was vicious, with entire cities reduced to rubble as humanity's soldiers fought their way toward the heart of the Dominion's weapon. Every step forward was paid in blood. Elena, commanding from the front lines, knew the odds. But she also knew that failure was not an option. The fate of her species, her allies, and the entire galaxy rested on this singular moment. As the forces clashed outside the Oblivion Cannon complex, Elena and a small team of soldiers infiltrated the facility, pushing past heavy resistance. Time was running out. When they reached the core, the reality of their situation hit Elena like a freight train. The Dominion had anticipated this move. The core was rigged to explode in the event of sabotage, detonating not only the Oblivion Cannon, but wiping out everything within a vast radius. The humans had no choice but to act quickly and decisively. In a daring move, Elena personally disabled the core's power grid, triggering a chain reaction that began to destabilize the cannon. It was a race against time, but they had done it. The weapon was no longer a threat. But as Elena and her team made their escape, a final, devastating twist of fate emerged. The Dominion retaliated in a last-ditch effort to destroy Earth's fleet. The Oblivion Cannon may have been disabled, but the consequences of their actions would reverberate throughout the galaxy. Would humanity be able to survive the aftermath of their victory, or would the galaxy's greatest power, the Dominion, exact a terrible revenge? The endgame had begun. The explosion that rocked the Dominion capital reverberated across the galaxy. Elena Voss and her team had succeeded in disabling the Oblivion cannon, but at great cost. As the core destabilized and the weapon's massive energy discharge erupted, a shockwave of destruction swept through the Dominion homeworld. Entire cities were consumed in the inferno, and the once mighty empire was thrown into chaos. The Oblivion cannon, though destroyed, had taken the very heart of the Dominion with it. But humanity's victory, though hard-earned, was not without its consequences. The Dominion was far from broken. Their retaliatory strike was swift and brutal. They launched a counterattack of unimaginable force, drawing every last ounce of their military might into one final push to obliterate the human fleet and their allies. The Dominion's hatred for humanity, fueled by the destruction of their most powerful weapon, now manifested as an all-out war for revenge. Elena, watching from the bridge of Earth's flagship, knew that their position was precarious. The human fleet had been decimated in the initial waves of the Dominion's vengeance. The diversionary forces had already been wiped out, and now the core of humanity's military might was trapped in a deadly siege. But Elena also knew one thing above all else. Humanity's survival had always been defined by its resilience and ability to adapt. This was no different. As the Dominion's warships encircled Earth's defenses, humanity's allies began to turn the tide. The Virile, motivated by the loss of their homeworlds to the Dominion's forces, threw their full support behind the human fleet, bringing with them advanced technologies and ship designs that had been developed during the war. The Draxians, their pride wounded by the Dominion's invasion of their territories, rallied to Earth's side, bolstering the human forces with fresh troops and battle-hardened leaders. Even some of the galaxy's more neutral species, long skeptical of humanity, came to their aid, now seeing them as a symbol of resistance to the tyranny of the Dominion. The final battle for Earth began to unfold in the outer reaches of the solar system. The Dominion's forces, still vast and brutal, clashed against the united front of human, Draxian, and Virile fleets. The conflict was a brutal, unrelenting barrage of firepower, maneuvering, and strategy. As the enemy's warships launched wave after wave of attacks, the humans fought with everything they had. Earth's fleet, battered but not broken, pushed forward with a resolve that surprised even their enemies. But the Dominion was relentless. Despite the losses, their fleet kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. As the battle waged on, Elena's thoughts turned inward. She had seen so much loss, so much devastation, and yet humanity refused to give up. But now, there were whispers of a final gambit, something the Dominion had planned from the start, something that would make Earth's survival a distant hope. In the midst of the chaos, a sudden realization hit Elena. The Dominion's fleet wasn't just attacking, they were preparing for something worse. The Oblivion cannon had been a singular weapon of destruction, but the Dominion's true plan involved something more insidious, a massive array of energy-draining devices scattered across key star systems, designed to siphon energy from every star in their vicinity. The ultimate goal, a galactic blackout that would cripple the entire galaxy and leave humanity and its allies powerless. Elena knew that if these devices went online, it would mark the end of the fight, and possibly the end of the galaxy's ability to ever resist the Dominion. The humans had to strike fast and decisively to shut down this new threat before it could be activated. It was a perilous mission, with no guarantee of success, but it was humanity's last chance. A small fleet of elite human and Draxian ships, led by Elena herself, set out to track down and disable the energy-draining arrays. The mission was fraught with danger as the fleet infiltrated Dominion-controlled systems, encountering fierce resistance at every turn. The arrays were hidden deep within uncharted space, heavily guarded by Dominion fleets and fortified by a series of deadly traps. As the team neared the final array, the stakes became clearer. The Dominion's war machine had become a dying, desperate beast, fighting for survival, and yet it still held the power to crush all that humanity had fought for. Elena understood that the final fight would not be about simply defeating the Dominion. It would be about securing a future in which the galaxy would never again be under the shadow of such an empire. The battle for the final array was brutal, with every human ship pushed to its absolute limits. Elena's fleet managed to break through Dominion defenses and sabotage the array, but the cost was great. Dozens of ships were lost in the effort, and the final push to destroy the array required humanity to sacrifice their most advanced ships and soldiers. Elena herself was gravely injured in the assault, but as the energy-draining array was finally destroyed, the massive energy siphon fell silent, and the balance of the battle began to shift. With their final weapon neutralized, the Dominion's remaining forces were forced to retreat. Their empire, already fractured by infighting, began to crumble. It was no longer a question of whether humanity would survive. It was a question of how the galaxy would rebuild in the wake of the Dominion's fall. As Earth's fleet returned to the shattered remains of their homeworld, Elena Voss, though battered and exhausted, stood at the helm of a new chapter in history. The Dominion was no more. Humanity had risen from the ashes, broken their isolation, and forged their place among the stars. The galaxy, once ruled by an empire of fear and oppression, was now a blank canvas. As new alliances were formed and old rivalries began to heal, humanity would become the architects of this new future. They had proven their worth not just as survivors, but as the future leaders of the galaxy. But Elena knew that their journey was far from over. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with new challenges, and the scars of war would not soon fade. But in the heart of the human spirit, there was always hope that, no matter the odds, they could overcome, rebuild, and rise once again. The war was over, but the true adventure was just beginning. The Dominion was gone, its once proud empire reduced to smoldering ruins. But even in their defeat, the Dominion left behind a galaxy scarred by their cruelty, a galaxy unsure of what the future would hold. The aftermath of the war was felt far and wide, and while some species celebrated the fall of their oppressors, many others were wary of the new power that had emerged from the ashes of Earth. Humanity, however, stood resolute in the face of uncertainty. They had been thrust from isolation into a galactic stage, forced to confront an empire that sought to dominate the stars. They had succeeded, but not without paying a heavy price. Cities lay in ruin, countless lives had been lost, and the galaxy was left to rebuild. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but humanity's strength, ingenuity, and determination had proven to be its greatest asset. As Earth's government prepared to take its place as a central force in the new galactic order, Elena Voss stood at the helm of a new council, a council made up of leaders from humanity, their allies, and those who had once stood against them. The scars of war were still fresh, but now there was hope. The war had proven that no matter how oppressive the enemy, no matter how insurmountable the odds, humanity could rise to meet any challenge. Elena looked out over the new capital of the United Federation of Planets, a vast assembly of species that had come together in the wake of the war. Earth, now the heart of a united galaxy, had become a symbol of resilience. It was not just the location of humanity's rebirth, but the place where a new vision of the future was being built. "We are the architects of tomorrow," Elena said to the assembled leaders. "We have faced the darkness of war, and we have come out stronger. But the work does not end here. The fall of the Dominion was not just our victory. It was the galaxy's victory. And now it is our responsibility to ensure that what happened to us, what happened to all of us, never happens again." The other leaders nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting a mix of optimism and apprehension. They knew that forging a new order would be fraught with challenges. The galaxy was vast and complex, filled with countless cultures, ideologies, and histories. But in their unity, there was strength. They would rebuild not just for their own species, but for the future of the galaxy as a whole. In the days following the war, Earth's scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, helping to restore planetary systems devastated by the Dominion's attacks. The Viral and Draxian engineers, too, contributed their knowledge, and together, they began the long process of healing the war-torn galaxy. The rebuilding of cities, infrastructure, and ecosystems was a monumental task, but it was one that brought species together in a way that had never happened before. Humanity's influence continued to grow, not through conquest or coercion, but through diplomacy, innovation, and the will to ensure that peace and freedom could take root. The war had shown them that they could stand alongside the galaxy's most powerful species, that they were no longer an isolated, fragile race hiding in the shadows. The humans of Earth had proven themselves as worthy allies, fierce warriors, and compassionate leaders. But even as the Federation began to take shape, Elena knew that there would be forces who would resist the changes. There were still remnants of the Dominion, loyalists and extremists who refused to accept their defeat. Some species, long oppressed by the Dominion, would struggle to trust humanity and its newfound power. And beyond the borders of known space, there were whispers of new threats, dark forces waiting to seize the vacuum left by the Dominion's fall. Elena's final speech as the first president of the Federation echoed across the galaxy, broadcasted on every communication channel. It was a message not just to the citizens of Earth, but to all sentient beings. This is our chance to build a new future. A future where no species rules over another. A future where every voice is heard, every life valued, and every dream possible. But that future won't come easily. We must stand together, united in our diversity, bound by our shared hope. We are not the only ones who have suffered, but we are the ones who can help lead the way forward. We must never forget the sacrifices made to bring us to this point, and we must ensure that the peace we fight for is a peace that endures. With those words, Elena stepped down from her post, handing the reins of the Federation to a new generation of leaders. She had accomplished what she set out to do. She had helped lead humanity to its place among the stars. But her work, and the work of those who followed her, was far from over. As humanity began to explore the galaxy, establishing new colonies, forging new alliances, and discovering the wonders of the universe, the scars of war would remain. But they would not define them. The new era was one of hope and possibility, and humanity was determined to ensure that it would never fall back into the isolation that had once held them captive. The galaxy was vast, and the challenges ahead were unknown, but humanity had proven that no force, no empire, no power could stop them. They had risen from isolation to become the galaxy's greatest power, and now, the stars were theirs to explore. And as Elena Voss gazed up at the stars, she knew that humanity's greatest journey had only just begun. The legacy of their triumph over the Dominion would echo for generations, a testament to the resilience, courage, and spirit of a species that refused to give up. The future was theirs to shape. And the galaxy, for the first time in millennia, was free.